I'm pleading guilty to the crime of not using commas.
And how is that a crime, fool?
Because it results in long sentences.
Take him to the dungeon!
The Fool's Journey. The wheel of fortune has spun for the fool, and he suddenly finds himself arrested and put in the dock of a court. A judge stares directly at him.
Court is in session. Fool, you are hereby charged with the heinous crime of hypocrisy. How do you plead?
Not guilty, Your Honour. I've got no idea what you're talking about. It's a bum rap.
We shall see. Exhibit A. When you were 12, your bicycle went missing, correct?
Yes, actually, and I know full well who stole it. Tommy Pearson from round the corner, the thieving snake. He should be in the dock, not me. This is an outrageous miscarriage of justice.
Yet 2 years later, you tried on a pair of ridiculously tight trousers at Dandy Dud's Emporium and walked out without paying for them.
That was different. I was borrowing them to wear to a turnip competition.
And which trousers are you wearing today, fool?
Well, those ones, actually.
You broke your own rules, did you not?
Yeah, okay. It's a fair cop.
Exhibit B. When you were 15, you lost your temper with your then-girlfriend, Edith Braithwaite, because she, and I quote, spent too long talking to the milk monitor. Is this correct?
Yes, it is. She was definitely flirting with him. I saw it with my own eyes.
Yet 2 weeks earlier, you shared a bag of jelly jesters with Cressida Cummings behind the pig pen.
That was different. She said she was hungry and I was worried about her health.
You were feeding them to each other.
Yeah, she was very weak.
You broke your own rules again, fool. You see what happens when you judge others too harshly? Eventually, you'll find yourself being judged. The wheels of karma keep on turning for everyone.
Yeah, I can see that now. I'm sorry, Your Honour.
The court finds you guilty, fool. You are hereby sentenced to go forth into the world with fairness, abiding by your own rules and not judging others. Court is dismissed, and for goodness sake, buy yourself some new trousers.
The fool has been found guilty of being a fool. Praise the Lord for the legal system. To be continued. Welcome back to Kippy's Quest and Tarot School. This week we're looking at the Justice card. Now it's important that we make the distinction between this card and Judgment, which comes along toward the end of the major arcana. That card is more concerned with rebirth and finding a new perspective. It's also not entirely about the laws of society. Those concepts are more connected to the Emperor, who's all the way back at number 4. Justice is the archetype of truth, fairness, and honesty. Now there's some overlap with the Wheel of Fortune card, which we talked about in the last video, particularly the concepts of karma and cause and effect. The Justice card expands on this by asking us to consider the repercussions of our actions, and reminds us that ultimately we only have ourselves to answer to. Arthur Edward Waite's brief definition of justice reads as equity, rightness, probity, executive, and triumph of the deserving side of law. Probity? Do you mean like when aliens put things up your bottom? We find the same image across all the earlier cards as we do in the Waite-Smith version. Waite himself says the card follows the traditional symbolism and carries above all its obvious meanings. The image is based on the Roman goddess Justitia, who was introduced to the Roman pantheon by Emperor Augustus. She represents one of the 4 cardinal virtues, the others being strength, temperance, and prudence. Now, while there's no tarot card for prudence, temperance will be coming along later in the series. The common image of Justitia is one that we see in courthouses and magistrates all over the world. According to Rachel Pollack, the legal Justitia was blindfolded to demonstrate that the law does not discriminate and applies to weak and powerful alike. However, this differs slightly from the image we see on the tarot card. Pollack goes on to say card 11 indicates that the psychic laws of justice, by which we mean the ability to understand the past, depends on us seeing the truth about ourselves and about life. The tarot Justitia, therefore, wears no blindfold. The scales in Justitia's left hand are drawn from the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead. This shows us the weighing of hearts, which took place in the underworld by our old friend Anubis. It was believed that when someone died, their soul was judged by weighing their heart against the feather of truth. If the heart turned out to be heavier than the feather, they would be rejected and eaten by Amit, the devourer of souls.
Hang on, it's not exactly fair, is it? Of course my heart is heavier than a feather. It doesn't mean I'm wicked, it's just a question of basic physics.
Sorry, I don't make the rules.
Yes, you do. You're literally the god of the dead. I'm sorry, but this is not an appropriate system for divine judiciary.
Amit, gobble him up.
Come see the injustice inherent in the afterlife.
The scales remind us that we are ultimately responsible for our actions, and by extension, the situations that we find ourselves in, good or bad.
Think carefully about the decisions you make. Your future is shaped by them.
This brings us on to the subject of karma.
Is that like the karma before the stormer? A brief history of karma.
Karma is the concept that all of our actions, good and bad, result in consequences that we have to live with. The principle has been accepted all over the world, but originated in Indian religions, in particular Hinduism and Buddhism. Many look upon this as people getting punished, but this is an oversimplification of karma. According to German philosopher Eckhart Tolle, action arising out of suffering is contaminated with suffering and causes further suffering, and that is karma. Action that arises out of a state of acceptance is totally free of karma, and there is a vast difference. The idea is that our thoughts inform our actions, and our actions create our reality. In Justitia's right hand, we see the double-edged sword of justice. This reminds us that justice can be swift and final. In the esoteric world, the image of the sword is associated with thought and intellect. In this context, we can see the sword as the instrument that cuts through the lies to get to the truth. Justitia is yet another archetype to sit between two pillars with a veil hanging between them. However, as with the Hierophant, Waite is very keen to point out that these are not the same pillars we see in the High Priestess card. He says the pillars of justice open into one world and the pillars of the High Priestess into another. In the Strength video, we talked about how the Order of Justice and Strength had been swapped around from earlier decks for the a.e.waite version, putting Justice at card number 11. This was to correspond Justice with the Libra zodiac sign. According to Paul Foster Case, Libra, the scales, is a cardinal Aries sign. It is ruled by Venus and is the sign in which Saturn is exalted.
But what does it all mean?
The appearance of the Justice card is most often associated with truth, fairness, and doing the right thing. It also refers to the correct outcome to a situation, regardless of how that pans out for us individually. It asks us what lessons can we learn from seeing the consequences of our actions. We get to define what justice means to us, and it's impossible not to be biased and think of that in a way that doesn't benefit us somehow. This, on the other hand, is the card of universal justice, and that doesn't care about our biases.
The correct outcome may not be the outcome that you desire.
When justice appears upside down, it can mean lying to ourselves and a refusal to take responsibility for our actions. Rachel Pollack says reversed, the card indicates dishonesty with yourself and others. It shows an unwillingness to see the meaning of events and shows especially that you are missing an opportunity for a greater understanding of yourself and your life. Conversely, the card upside down can also refer to fraudulence, corruption, and miscarriages of justice.
Correspondence Corner!
Justice sits on the 22nd path of the Tree of Life between Geburah and Tiferet. This is the path between severity and beauty. She corresponds to the Hebrew letter Lamed, which means ox goad.
Ow!
Her musical note is F sharp. Her corresponding herb is plantain, and her zodiac sign is Libra. Justice appears at the exact halfway point in the major arcana. If we look at the Fool's journey as a journey through life, then this position at number 11 can be a representation of the present. This allows us to look at the past and how our actions have brought about the circumstances that we find ourselves in now. According to Rachel Pollack, when we find the center of our lives, everything comes into balance. When all the opposites, including past and future, come into balance, we are able to be free within ourselves. The big takeaway from the Justice card is the concepts of fairness, karma, and truthfulness, especially to ourselves. When she appears, it can be a reminder to look back, reflect truthfully on our decisions, and try to make the right choices in the future, not just for our own sake, but for everyone.
How can you be honest with others if you cannot be honest with yourself?
Thank you for joining us once again on Kippy's Quest. May the coming days bring you truth, understanding, and the honest desire to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.